Here is a complete approximately 900-word story based on your title, written for strong emotional engagement and smooth narration. The train hissed as it slowed, iron wheels screaming against the tracks, and Eleanor Whitmore pressed her gloved hands tighter around the small leather suitcase resting on her lap. Outside the window stretched miles of Kansas prairie, flat, endless, and unfamiliar. This land was supposed to be her future. It was supposed to be her escape. She was not meant to be the bride. The letter had arrived 3 months earlier, sealed with careful ink and hopeful words. A widowed rancher in Kansas needed a wife, someone respectable, someone willing to build a life far from the judgmental eyes of the East. The proposal was not romantic, but it was practical, and for Eleanor, practicality meant survival. After her younger sister fell ill, after death swallowed her family home, after society quietly turned its back on her, Eleanor answered the advertisement under another woman's name. Clara Mayfield. That was the name on the papers, the name stitched into the simple wedding dress folded in her suitcase. Clara Mayfield was the woman who was supposed to arrive. Eleanor Whitmore had been buried with her past. The platform was small, dusty, and quiet. A handful of people waited, farmhands, a station clerk, a woman with a basket of apples. And then she saw him. Tall, broad-shouldered, hat held respectfully against his chest. His eyes searched the passengers with cautious hope. "You must be Miss Mayfield," he said when she stepped down. "Yes," Eleanor replied, the lie practiced and gentle. His name was Thomas Hale. He spoke little on the ride to the ranch, but when he did, his voice was steady and kind. He asked if she was tired, if the journey had been hard, if Kansas felt too lonely already. Eleanor answered carefully, afraid that too much honesty might unravel her borrowed identity. The wedding took place 3 days later. No guests, no flowers beyond wild blooms tied with twine. The minister's words floated in the warm air as Eleanor repeated vows meant for another woman. When Thomas placed the ring on her finger, she felt a sharp ache, not regret, but fear. Fear that happiness borrowed could never last. Life on the ranch settled into a quiet rhythm. Eleanor learned to bake bread in a wood stove, to mend clothes by lamplight, to wake before dawn and sleep beneath wide, starlit skies. Thomas never pressed her with questions. He respected her silences, her occasional distant stares. Slowly, trust grew between them, fragile, but real. Then autumn came. It was a market day in town when everything shattered. Eleanor stood near a stall of dried herbs, examining bundles of sage, when she felt it, an awareness, sharp and cold, like a shadow falling across her back. Eleanor. The sound of her real name struck her like a gunshot. She turned slowly. The man standing there was older than she remembered, his hair threaded with gray, his eyes sharp with recognition. Samuel Crowley, a former business associate of her father. A man who knew every scandal, every secret her family had fought to bury. "I thought it was you," he said quietly, a thin smile forming. "But I was told Eleanor Whitmore vanished." Her heart pounded. The world around them seemed to fade. "You're mistaken," she said, forcing steadiness. "My name is Clara." He stepped closer. "You always did hate that blue ribbon," he murmured, glancing at her dress. "Just like the summer your father lost everything." That night, Eleanor barely touched her supper. Thomas noticed. "You've gone pale," he said. "Did something happen in town?" She wanted to tell him. Every word burned inside her chest. But fear won. Fear of losing the only safe place she had ever known. "Just tired," she whispered. But Samuel Crowley did not disappear. 2 days later, he came to the ranch. Thomas greeted him politely, unaware of the storm standing on his porch. Samuel spoke easily, his voice smooth, his gaze never leaving Eleanor. "You didn't tell me your wife was from the Whitmore family," he said casually. Silence fell heavy and suffocating. Thomas turned slowly. "Whitmore." Eleanor felt the lie collapse. She spoke then, not with excuses, not with careful half-truths, but with everything. The debts, the shame, the illness, the desperate choice to become someone else. Her voice trembled, but she did not stop. When she finished, Thomas said nothing. He simply stood, jaw tight, eyes dark with thought. Samuel, sensing his victory, took his leave. That night passed without words. By morning, Eleanor had packed her suitcase. "I will go," she said quietly. "I never meant to deceive you. I only wanted a chance to live." Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and placed something on the table, the marriage certificate. "You came here as Clara Mayfield," he said. "But you live here as my wife. The name doesn't change the woman I know." Tears streamed down Eleanor's face. "I should be angry," he continued. "But I see courage where others see deceit. And I won't let a stranger decide who belongs in my home. She stayed. Winter came early that year. Snow covered the plains, and Eleanor learned that belonging was not granted by names or papers, but by truth, forgiveness, and the quiet decision to stand together. And when Thomas spoke her name after that, he spoke it gently. Eleanor, not as a secret, but as home.